Get Pucked. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Get Pucked podcast. Here today is Matt and Vito. Unfortunately, Dave is not able to make it, but we're going to try to truck along without him. Sir, how you doing?
Not too bad, you?
I'm hanging in there. It's hockey season. It's right around the corner. We got a lot of preseason action, and that sort of leads me into a little conversation I wanted to ask you about. There's so many people that are clamoring about this combination of lineup versus this, and this guy's not producing that, and the Habs are 0-3, and yada, yada, yada. Does preseason wins and losses matter? Like in the grand scheme of things, does it really matter, or is this not a showcase for the individual players and to try to find some chemistry?
Preseason doesn't matter. What matters about preseason is the veterans and the players that you know are making the team and are going to be on the opening roster. Shake off some of that rust, get their game legs going, and for some of the younger players that are trying to earn a spot, work their way to that spot, and trying to convince management that they belong with the Montreal Canadiens. It doesn't necessarily mean that those players are going to have to score a ton of goals and be the next it player. They just need to be able to show that they can fit on the opening night roster. Some of them are just going to be an extra forward or an extra defenseman. Some of them might actually be in the lineup on opening night. And take it from there. Some of them are even just, are probably going to just showcase themselves enough to get the 10 games and then eventually get sent down to whatever respective team and league that they're supposed to get sent down to. But yeah, there are some that.
So, well, put yourself in the people's shoes. I want to hear the other side of the coin. Then, why are people making such a big deal about it? Like, tell me what you think is going through people's minds. Like, I'm in agreement with you, right? I think preseason wins and losses, they can lose every single preseason. You like to see them win one.
But at the same time, you don't want to lose every game. You want to show that, okay, we can win one. The thing that I've noticed about the games that Montreal has been playing so far is they've been pretty much entertaining. They've been sticking around more or less to the end of the game. But at the same time, like Montreal lost their last game against Ottawa, but Ottawa was icing a team that had most of their active roster or most of their main players.
Well, they had more
their salary.
vets.
They had $62.5 million worth of players on the ice versus Montreal's like 30-something million.
Yeah, I know. I saw that too. I think back on it and I'm looking at it and I'm like, listen, guys, the Habs brought I think 74 players, right? And I mean, they were trying all kinds of different combinations and having guys try and slot in here and there, giving a lot of their veterans like the Drouins and the Monahans and Suzuki and Edmondson and all these other guys who are dealing with injuries and stuff, they don't have to rush back. It'd be nice to get some preseason action. For example, tonight we're going to see Monahan. Drouin just came back the other night there. I mean, that's good. But you can't expect all of a sudden, like the team to just take off. They were loaded with a bunch of players that aren't going to be on the roster.
But at the same time, people can't have it both ways. People can't have it both ways. They can't want the Montreal Canadiens to win and also finish last place at the end of the year to go and try to push for Connor Bedard. This is a year that the management has made it perfectly clear. It's a development year. They're not going to fucking sacrifice the success of the team or sacrifice development to get wins. If they happen to win along the way, so be it. But this is a development year. So people who are complaining and clamoring and, oh my God, Montreal's losing. Oh, they're a bust. Oh, that player's a bust. Guys, stop. At the end of the day, it's a long, long rebuild. It's going to be a rebuild. We're still rebuilding. Just because they had a successful year at the draft and some nice trades that happened doesn't necessarily mean the rebuild is over. It's going to take time. This year, they're gonna again. You want a bottom 3 pick? If you want the bottom 3 pick, the losses have to pile up. Again, it's preseason. There's a lot to be excited about. I know that my expectations that Montreal's not going to have a very good year. But for whatever reason, I'm very excited because I see the youth. I see there's a clear-cut plan versus in the past we didn't really have one. There's a lot to look forward to in terms of prospects. You have Philip Messar, who's surprising people. Owen Beck. You have players in the pipeline down the road like Lane Hudson that's looking good in the NCAA and so on. There's things to be excited about. So that's what I'm focusing on. If Montreal, the last thing I want is Montreal to become a middle of the pack team and somehow might squeeze the playoffs, or
No, but
they just make it happen. I
that's
don't
not
want
happening
that.
this year.
I
No.
don't want that. No, you
That's
can't
not
say that's
happening.
not happening because it's a possibility.
I
Do
don't
I
see
think it's
this
going to
team going
happen?
middle
I
of the
don't think
pack.
so
I
because
don't
their
think so.
defense is awful. And at the same time, I mean, you can't expect Jake Allen to stand on his head game in and game out. It's just not going to
Well,
happen.
speaking of Allen, they give him a 2-year extension, right? Like, what do you
Right.
make of this? What's the sort of strategy behind this? Is it's stalling for Primo? It's stalling for Price? It's make sure that you have at
It's a
least
guy
somebody
that
there.
wants, yeah, but it's a guy that wants to be here. Okay, he didn't have to sign the extension. It's not like he Montreal threw $5-6 million at him. They threw a reasonable contract that, when push comes to shove, if they have to move him, somebody's going to take that contract. It's a digestible number. But he's been a good leader. He's been a good veteran. He's a guy who can mentor not only goalies but other forwards, defense. It doesn't matter because at the end of the day, he's got the NHL experience. He can't necessarily speak on behalf of other forwards or the defensemen in a sense, but he can speak as an NHL pro, and he happens to be a good one at that. So,
but it's a testament, right? Like it's a testament to the fact that the team is trending in the right direction, and his comments about after signing saying he wants to be here, wants to help guide the kids and stuff like this, and he wants to be there, even going through the hardship. He's prepared.
Even the words he said, when you see the words he said, he's not delusional. None of the players seem to be delusional. They kind of know like this is a year. They don't want to lose because they're competitive. It's just in their blood.
Well, hold on a second about delusional. Who was it that said that the rebuild was last year? Who was it at the golf tournament? He's like, the rebuild was last year.
I think that was Eddie.
Was it Eddie? Okay.
I think it was Eddie.
Listen, I don't want to call Eddie delusional, but when comments like that are made, they're going to compete. No team worth its salt goes out and purposely says from the offset, yeah, we're going to suck this year. We're going to be sucky. We want to do it on purpose.
Well, I mean, Chicago's kind of pointing that direction.
But the players aren't saying that. Their management are being a bunch of like obvious, stupid, people that are just being like, yeah, let's just trade every single young player we have. We're completely tearing this down. But even the players, while they won't come out and say, yes, this is obviously going to be like a dog shit year and it's going to be terrible and we're all not going to try. You don't see players saying that. So, I mean, obviously you don't expect anybody in the Habs to say it. I just thought it was curious that Eddie was so, I don't know, specific almost in the choosing of his words, because they mentioned rebuild and stuff and he very quickly dismissed that. He's like, yo, man, rebuild was last year. We're here. We got a nice team this year. We're going to compete.
Well, the way I see it when he said that, it's probably to keep everybody in that competitive mindset. You don't want people to come into the season, even though they know it in the back of their minds, or they just know like Montreal's in a rebuilding phase and all that. They still want the players to show up. Maybe there are some characters in the room, we don't know, that if you put that in their head, it's a rebuild and their goal is to finish last place, they just won't show up during the games. I don't know. But you're gonna have everybody having a different mindset. But at the same time, they're not stupid either. They know that they're not a Stanley Cup team. They know that they're not a playoff team right now.
Well, likely no.
So as long as they're learning, as long as they're having fun, as long as they're enjoying themselves, they show that there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, developing. They have to show that they're developing.
Progression. The young kids that were there last year can show some progression this year, and that their game has evolved. I mean, we've already seen some flashes with Caulfield. They're looking kind of like the Caulfield we saw at the end of last season, and things of that nature. So, for me, that's what I'm excited to look to this year. It's gonna be rough. I'm sure of it. I just don't think the Montreal Canadiens are as bad as they were last year. I think last year.
No, I think
last year it was just it was hard for everybody to get over what was going on.
Well, okay, but let's also be clear about it. And I don't want to beleaguer this point too much because I kind of wanted to talk about something else that's a little bit more in the present. But they themselves last year weren't as bad as what they ultimately ended up being. You're talking about the team that had the most man game losses in history. You know what I mean? This was a decimated team. Now, I'm not saying that this was a Stanley Cup contending team because the year prior to that was the bubble and the things. And I'll be the first to admit that was quite a lucky turn of events of how everything ended up panning out. But they were not a 32nd place team.
No,
without all the injuries and the shit
dude,
that happened.
they lost.
Are they in the bottom tier of the league? Yes, but they're not the worst team in the
When
league.
you look at the way the team played out last year, I'm talking about the whole year. You had a coaching change. You had, just before that, they had got the year before they went to the Stanley Cup Finals. They lost their captain. Then they lost the other captain, so to speak, in Carey Price. Then who's moving, who's not moving, who's staying, who's not staying. Then Kent Hughes. Then you had Jeff Gordon, and it was so much change happening. Heck, even something as small as Pierre Gervais leaving the team itself. You know what I mean? There's so much happening.
Well, I can argue that a lot of the change was happening because of their poor play on the ice, but I'm simply saying that the poor play on the ice they had the shortest rest period ever between going to a finals and starting another season, which definitely wreaked havoc. A lot of the guys were playing hurt. You had more things happen, more guys get hurt, more COVID cases, more stuff, and it just led to loss after loss after loss, which snowballed the season out of control. Cost a bunch of guys their jobs, had a whole change in management like you're suggesting. I mean, all these things sort of happened, but I'm just saying there's no way that the team that's going to be iced this year is a 32nd place team. I just can't see it. Not with the Chicagos out there with what they're doing.
Yeah, I don't think they're a last place
in Arizona
team, but I'd be very, very surprised if they're not a bottom 5-6 team.
They likely are. And in fact, it would be best for the future of this team that, especially in this upcoming draft, they're in the bottom 5.
All I want to suggest and I want to recommend to some Habs fans, the ones that are already calling Slafkovsky a bust or are criticizing him and all that, if you guys are already acting like this during the preseason, buckle up, because the rest of the season there's going to be some down periods, and if you guys are going to start hating on your own players during a rebuild phase, turn off the TV and go watch something else.
Yeah, but first off, you always have. I mean, bear in mind too, right? We like to bring these topics up because they're fun to talk about, but it is in fact a very vocal minority of people that I think are out there and are saying Slap is a bust.
But I don't care how much of a minority group they are or how small of a group they are. They're loud enough. They're annoying enough to want both. They want both. I want them to win, but I want to get Connor Bedard as well. You can't have both.
Well, when it's a fun thing because it's the first time in probably a lot of Habs fans' lifetimes that they have a first overall pick on the team. And when you choose somebody who is, granted you had a couple people, but the vast majority had Shane Wright as the number one, and you take somebody who wasn't Shane Wright, you have expectations. You have expectations that your management saw something and is swinging for the fences on this guy, and he was highly touted.
They're
and
not
he had
really
a great
swinging for the fences though, because when you look at Slafkovsky, physically speaking, the guy is mature beyond his years. Physically speaking,
he's a monster.
He is NHL ready, but his game needs to adapt, needs to develop, and needs to mature. You can have some players that their game is already mature now, but then fast forward a few years from now, the game didn't evolve any more than what it is. When you look at Slafkovsky's total package, and I was a Shane Wright guy. I was saying it. We'll watch the other episodes.
I think we all did. Yeah,
I was saying they're going to draft Shane Wright. They're going to draft Shane Wright. But when you look at Slafkovsky, the entire tool set, what he has and what he could potentially become, and some of the flashes you see, and whether it was the scrimmages, whether it was the preseason games, you saw moments. The problem with people bashing Slafkovsky right now, and the ones that are like, "Oh my God, it's been underwhelming," this is like, yeah, it has been underwhelming, but he has literally played 2 preseason games, and his line mates have been nothing but bottom 6 players. He played with Rem Pitlick, Joel Armia, and he had 1 game with Kirby Dach. In that 1 game with Kirby Dach, which is a guy who's also rediscovering his game at the moment, he showed good passes, some flashes. You saw some moments, and that's what I'm paying attention to. Because what Slafkovsky needs, if he does stay with Montreal, is support him with players that are going to play to his strengths while he's able to play to focus and work on his weaknesses. Okay, the guy is physically mature, but his game was all in Europe. He's learning North American hockey. Now, the question that should be asked, or the comments that people should be saying is, "Oh, is he a bust because he's a first overall pick?" He's not a bust. Nobody in that draft was projected to be the next McDavid, the next Austin Matthews. Is who were you going to grab?
Wow.
Who was a top player or will be an important piece, not a savior, a piece to the big puzzle.
But if you take a guy first overall, your expectation, because it's only been, I think, 1 or 2 guys in the last, 30 years or some nonsense that haven't jumped straight to the NHL from being first overall. There is an expectation, it's a fair expectation from Habs fans, that this guy should make the roster. And he has not. Heineman has looked better than him. Beck has looked better than him. You got guys that are out there that are making really strong cases to somehow make the roster. And I want to dive into that with you in a second too, because I mean, frankly, there's just way too many people. We have way too many players that are on this roster. It's just crazy.
Okay,
something's got to give.
So yeah, something's got to give. There's a lot of players on the roster, but when you look at the only player since 2016 for you to look at and say, you know what, they needed to start on their teams right away from the draft as first overall picks, and it was Austin Matthews. Everybody else, there could have been an argument or a debate as to sending them down or whatever.
But
and we're talking about Owen Power, yes.
Yeah, just
Alexis Lafreniere, they did it. They should have,
but they didn't.
But they should have. Nobody's sending Juraj Slafkovsky down right away. Nobody knows yet.
I agree. And that's another point that I like to make too. Considering the fact that overall you'd imagine that their mindset is about development. I mean, it's hard to say because you don't throw a kid on a team that's competing and be like, oh, he's going to learn on the fly. And because you're in win mode, they're going to play on the fourth line. They're not going to get the high end minutes. They're not going to be put in positions to actually improve their game. But because of where the Habs are situated now, would you not prefer him to be under Martin St. Louis' tutelage? Would you not prefer him to get a taste of the pro life and be around the best possible players that he can play with? Or is it better, in your opinion, that you do send him down to the AHL where he'll be a very big fish in a little pond, but you don't have all of those other concepts? Because I personally would like to find a way, and I can't seem to be able to find out how to make this work, but I would like for him to be on the roster for the Habs. I see him there.
There's pros and cons to both. Like, yeah, under Marty St. Louis, I think it would work well. They're gonna keep a close eye on him, develop him. He's gonna get some NHL games under his belt, so on and so forth. The problem with that also, or where I could see the problem, is if he's having trouble keeping up to the game, but his hockey IQ is keeping him there, but he's still having trouble. You don't want to hurt this kid's confidence. Or better yet, you don't want to put him in a situation where he starts to doubt whether he could even keep up to the NHL right now.
You keep his ass off the social media. You make sure that you don't have him reading about people calling him a bust after 2 preseason games.
At the same time,
I mean, come on.
In the AHL, which is a tough league, some would even say, in terms of a toughness and physicality standpoint, could be even tougher than the NHL because you got certain goons in the league.
Well, I don't know about tougher, but yeah, it's you got a better chance, I think, perhaps of getting hurt in the AHL.
There's people that are in that league that are looking to target star players or future superstar players, whatever the case may be. And I think there is something that I would, before we even talk about sending Slafkovsky down, I want to see what he can do in a top 6 role with NHL players, with good support, and somebody that, like a Suzuki, like a Cole Caulfield on his line mates, Josh Anderson, any of those guys that could insulate him properly.
Where does he go? I have it open up now. Where does he go? Let's say that you have the opening night roster, right? And let's, of course, also assume that they don't go and pick random people up from the waiver and stuff, even though if they did, it would very likely be a defender. But whatever. Where does he slot? Is he ahead of Caulfield? No. I'm talking left side, right? Let's just say on his left side.
He's ahead of anybody. You want to know who he's ahead of? He's ahead of anybody who's not part of the future plans of the Montreal Canadiens.
So you would purposely put him ahead of guys like Dandanov, Andersons, Hoffman's?
In a sense, yes. In a sense, yes. Because when you look at what is the plan for the Montreal Canadiens? If their plan is not to win now, then he's ahead of all those players. Because they're gone by the end of the season. If your plan is to re-sign 1 or 2 of those players and they're there for your future plans, then no, you don't put them. Let's say, for example, Dadonov. We know he's done at the end of the season. But if Kent Hughes and him have some kind of agreement of some kind, if you perform or whatever, we'll sign you to an extension, and they actually are intrigued by Dadonov, then maybe that's not the case. But Hoffman has another year on his contract, and no matter how you spin it, whether they're trying to trade him or whether they buy him out or whether they move, whatever the fuck it is that they want to do with Hoffman, at the end of the day, Slafkovsky is part of the longer term plans than Hoffman is. You put him ahead of Hoffman. So if it means you bench Hoffman, or then you bench
him. Give me your lineup. I want the lines. I just because and bear in mind, I want lines that have Monahan and Drouin in it. Like that's what I want, because I can't see. I get what you're saying, right? I hear what you're saying, and I actually agree with quite a bit of what you're saying. Like, if he's the future, he should play with top 6 guys because it gives him the best shot. It puts him in the right positions. It should allow him to elevate his game. It also gives him, and more importantly, the minutes that he would require in order to improve his game. I don't like having these guys come up and play 4th line minutes in that sort of more checking role for 8 minutes a game. I don't see that as a benefit, not for skilled guys like this. Even though he's a massive body individual, I don't see, he wasn't drafted first overall to be a big boy to check you and play 8 minutes a game. But my point is, you have so many wingers. I can't see if they have any sort of like the regular way of playing people. I know Martin St. Louis, new coach, maybe he will see things the way you suggested. But how do you put this kid who right now in 2 preseason games hasn't really shown like consistent
but my argument against stands. He hasn't shown consistent, but he hasn't been put with line mates that can. I mean, his game was as inconsistent as Joel Armia's game, and guess who he played with? Joel Armia. Joel Armia could show you flashes one game where the guy honestly is a top 6 forward and he's got all the talent in the world, and then all of a sudden he disappears for extra games. That's what it looked like.
Okay, so here I put it to you this way. It would seem that I believe Dadonov, Dvorak, and Gallagher is a line. At least that's a line that they're kind of locking up now. I think they're even playing tonight again. It seems to be like those 3 guys are locked. We won't call them third line or second line.
It's like the poor man's Tatar Danoa line.
Well, be that as it may, it seems to be the line. Okay, so that line's in. You got the Caulfield and Suzuki, and it seems like Anderson is the guy, right? It seems like it. Okay, fine. So now you have 2 lines left. All right, and in those 2 lines, you have to fit Drouin, Doc, Armia, Hoffman, Monahan, Evans, Pitlick, Slafkovsky.
Okay, so...
And that's not counting the Pizzettas who's not coming. That's not counting the Heinemans that are making a push. Forget the Beck. I don't see him coming. The Yelonins of the world. The Rafi Pinards of the world. I mean, that's not even counting these guys who you can make arguments deserve a shot. We're not even talking about them. So bear that in mind. What are your teams?
Okay.
What are your lines, rather?
The only 2 players I have trouble fitting into all of this is Drouin and Hoffman.
Not 1, 2.
Yeah, it's Drouin and Hoffman, but I could make a lineup. The other thing you got to consider, too, is there's a possibility Slafkovsky stays in Montreal, but doesn't mean he plays all 82 games.
That would be such a mistake. I hope that's not the case.
No, it's not such a mistake, because sometimes he might need to rest or whatever. The guy has never played an 82-game schedule.
I don't like that argument either, because that's the job. You know what I mean? That's like coming from, I don't know, in a real world analogy, that you work part-time and then you get a full-time gig and you go up to your boss after you finish your part-time hours. And you're like, wow, I just did an extra 10 hours that I wasn't used to doing. This is tough for me. I need a little bit of time off. This is the job, kid. This is 82 games. This is the gig. If you can't do it, there's a bigger problem here.
All I can say is somebody going on waivers. Or
someone has to.
Yeah.
I know your guy is Hoffman. I know you've been touting this for a while. You think Hoffman somehow is going to go on waivers.
Technically, it's 2 players, because I mean, the roster I have put together, when I look at it and the lineups, it's I could place everybody, assuming that Slafkovsky stays on the team. Yeah. I don't have a spot for Drouin and Hoffman.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, then you're not solving my problem. You're actually proving my point. There's too many guys. I can't see how he's there. How do you take Drouin and Hoffman and throw them on the waivers, both of them, and play a kid like Slafkovsky?
I never said you throw them on waivers. The problem is they might not play all 82 games. But
I don't see it. What's your lineup? I'm just curious. Do we agree that Anderson's with Suzuki and Caulfield, or do you see somebody else up there?
No. I've got Suzuki, Caulfield, and Anderson.
Fine.
On the
Dendonov,
second line,
Dvorak, and Gallagher. Fine. Forget two. I don't care about 2-3. I don't care about 2-3.
No, but that's the next line. That's my third line.
Okay, fine. Whatever. What's the next line?
Okay, second line. People might disagree at first, but I think he can come back to form. Sean Monahan, Slafkovsky, and Kirby Dach.
Monahan on the right or the left?
Monahan's playing center.
Kirby Dach. Okay, Kirby Dach on the right.
Moves on the right. Yes.
Fine.
And then
Slafkovsky.
Dvorak, Dadonov, Gallagher.
Yeah.
And I've really liked what I've seen between Jake Evans, Rem Pitlick, and Joel Armia. And Pezzetta is your extra forward. Well, technically, so is Hoffman and Drouin at this point.
I mean, how do you not have Hoffman and Drouin on this team?
If we're bitching about Slafkovsky being inconsistent, we definitely got to bitch about Mike Hoffman, $4.5 million Mike Hoffman, who's played in the NHL already.
Okay, but my problem is this, right? Exactly. He's $4.5 million player. Now, maybe he's not in the future plans. Fine. But if you're not going to play him to try to entice at a deadline to get something, then you might as well throw him on the waivers.
Yeah.
Okay, let's pretend that happens.
Yeah.
I don't see it, but let's pretend that happens.
Okay.
You're telling me that Drouin, after all of his shit and all the things that have gone through and the this and the that and time off and back and feeling good and all the other jazz, he's going to sit there as your 13 forward and not play?
I'm not saying that's what they're going to do to him. Opening night, it's quite possible that they have Drouin Slafkovsky spot until you start seeing some inconsistencies on any other player.
If Slafkovsky isn't making the top 9, if he's not going to play in a top 9, there is zero reason for him not to be in Laval.
Hold on a second. Even if he goes to Laval, have you seen how many players are in Laval?
Yeah, it's a ton. Yeah, but he's gonna play on the top line in Laval.
Send him back to Europe at this point.
No, he's gonna play in Laval, and I think he'll have fun with it because I think Mesher is gonna play in Laval too.
No,
I think so.
I don't think so.
I think so.
I don't think so.
So his buddy will be there potentially. I mean, he's gonna have a lot of. I mean, listen. If he goes to Laval,
I'm just saying, Montreal better hope that Paulie B is not coming back either, because then they really will have too many players.
Well, no, Paulie B for sure going on waivers. There's no doubt in my mind. I think he might be one of those guys that every day he's going to wake up and be like, I really don't want to relocate. Oh, my shit still hurts. I'm not ready. And he goes on that long-term IR. I mean, you might not ever see Paulie B play again. You might not.
For the Montreal Canadiens, I don't think so.
Well, I mean, for the Habs, I certainly don't see it, and I like Paul Byron quite a bit. But I mean, we are struggling to find places for Hoffmans and Drouins of the world. You're telling me we got to find a Paul B also? Where is this happening? I mean, and the Pezzettas is, of course, I like Pezzetta too. I mean, he's a hard-nosed guy. He's a throwback to an old school type of hockey player.
He's not going anywhere.
Where the hell is he going?
Pezzetta's not going anywhere, because when you look at Pezzetta, he's the only one on that team that does what he does. Everybody else, mostly everybody else, they all kind of do the same kind of thing.
Well, skill. Yeah, they're skill-based players, and not to rip on Pezzetta, but I know that he knows that he's not of that caliber. He's the grinder.
He's the grinder, brings energy. Yeah. He's got his pedal to the metal the entire time when he's on his shift. That's it. But he's not a guy that there's place for him to play all 82 games either.
So even if he's your 13th, no, fine. Even if he's your 13th. Okay, so now I throw Mike Hoffman in the garbage down here somewhere. Okay, he's gone. Now I got Pezzetta's my 13th, but I still have Drouin. You can't not have Drouin in place, so Drouin has to go somewhere. Drouin does not fit on a fourth line. So unfortunately or fortunately, Pitlick, Evans, and Armia are safe. That's your fourth line. Now he's got to move up. Slafkovsky's in his spot there, but you want to keep Slav. Okay, he's not playing center. That experiment's not happening, so he's not taking Monahan's spot. And he's got Kirby Dach on the right.
Who's not playing center?
Drouin.
Oh, no, hell no.
No, exactly. So now he has to take Kirby Dach's spot, who you are trying to groom and make, into this new kind of top 6 guy on your own.
Again,
I
Who
just
is
can't
part of
understand
the
how to do
future
it.
plans of the Montreal Canadiens? Kirby Dach's got a contract. He's staying. Slafkovsky, staying. Suzuki, staying. Josh Anderson's got a long-term contract, staying. Caulfield, staying. Okay, so now you're looking and saying, okay, technically the debate is Sean Monahan. There's a shot where Sean Monahan, but Sean Monahan, by all accounts, if his hips
If
are
healthy,
if
yeah,
healthy and his hips and
yeah.
he's able to recapture what he was before all his hip issues, he's a better player and the type of player that Montreal needs more so than Drouin is. All right,
And you got to showcase him because you're going to get more for him than a Drouin at a deadline if you're looking to trade him.
okay. The only person that I look at player that I look at on this roster and be like, you can take him in and out of the lineup as much as you want, but he's a very good bumper player, and it's Dadonov. But if you take Drouin and you plug him where Dadonov is, then that line kind of doesn't make any sense anymore.
I prefer Danzanov to Drouin on that line. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't make sense. In a perfect world, you're trading somebody. You're
Yes,
trading several guys and getting a defenseman.
The administration that's currently there are gonna they're gonna not push, but they're gonna want that the players that they mainly brought in or that they at least trust and see as part of their future to play more so than the guys that were brought in from the previous regime and that were unfortunately are there because of whatever the reasons are. You know what I mean?
Yes, I get
Hoffman,
it. A lot of these guys are victims of that, and but when they were getting players in, and you were scratching your head, you're like, well, obviously a move has to come, unless if they're very, very, very shrewd businessmen, and they're like, you know what, waivers. They just don't fit anymore. I don't care. You got $5 million contract, $4.5 million.
Well,
waivers,
why? Even the
waivers.
previous administration did that when they sent Carl Alsner down. They signed him and they made that mistake and said it doesn't. Your contract.
But hold on a second,
Carl
Alsner. Hold on, Carl Alsner. Again, I don't like to actually rip on players like that, but Carl Alsner did zero to help himself earn a spot. He was a liability and was not a good defenseman for this team. Well, and no, so they sent his ass down because he was fine, but he was hurting the team. A healthy Drouin does not hurt you.
I'm not saying
a Hoffman who shows up that night doesn't hurt you.
But that's the key thing about the Hoffman. Okay, a Hoffman that shows up that night. Which night is he showing up? Which night?
Okay, so I said it. Throw his ass on waivers. You still got too many players. And I come back. What about all the kids in Laval that are ready to make the jump? What do you do with the Ylonen? What do you do with Rafi Pinard? You still got Heineman sitting around. The kid's looking fantastic. What do you do with these guys? Are they simply victims and they can't make a spot because we have too many?
A conversation could be had saying, listen, we're still working out with our players and whatever. Injuries are going to fucking happen. You know they always do. I mean, I can't remember the last time Drouin was healthy for a full season.
No, it's a long while. But fine. No, they'll come up and play. I'm simply saying getting a roster spot, not filling in, actually earning a spot. These guys, I don't know. I mean, you know, if Dave was here, he'd laugh at the fact that I bring up Ylonen like he did last time. He doesn't see him at any rate.
He's not coming up.
Yeah, fine. But I mean, you still have some kids that are ready to make a move. And I mean, I'm scared to even talk about defense right now. Who's playing defense on this team?
Oh, that's pretty obvious.
Really? Besides the Eddie and the and Savard and Matheson, tell me exactly who the other three are.
Jordan Harris.
Why? Jordan Harris is an absolute guarantee to you.
He finished the year last year in Montreal, and he's been our most mobile defenseman since the preseason started. And everybody's talking Harris. So yeah, he's there. So that's 4 defensemen. Chris Weidman, is staying at the NHL.
Well, hold on, Harris is on the left.
He could play left or right, but he's a left-handed shot.
But do you see him on the left?
Yes.
Okay, so now you have Matheson, Edmondson, and Harris. You have Savard. You're saying Weidman, I heard.
Weidman's at least there, whether he's a 6th defenseman or a 7th defenseman, but he's there on the right side.
All right, so now who else do you have? Do you see Justin Barron? Where's Caden Gooley, who's the left also? Where's he?
If Caden Gooley does come up, that's when you're going to see Harris shift to the right.
Okay, so Harris is on your right. You got Gooley comes up. Weidman now moves up with Edmondson. Savard is there with Matheson. Shoot him in, throw him out of a cannon. And Norlinder stays down. Jack Guy stays down.
I would love Jack Guy up, but I think Jack Guy, it wouldn't be a bad idea for him to play some games in Laval. He could play at the NHL level. He's shown that he can, and I would love to see him.
What about Barron? Justin Barron.
Justin Barron. The thing about Justin Barron is he might have a chance of staying with Montreal simply because he's right-handed. If he were a left-handed defenseman playing the game that he does, they probably would send him down to Laval because offensively and his mobility and his instincts are there. But some of his decision-making with the puck is still questionable, and some of his defensive game still needs to be worked on. Listen, but Justin Barron, if you put him with a more defensive defenseman or somebody like Eddie, it could work.
I mean, they're all combinations. See, it's one of those fun problems, right? This is a fun problem to have. It's not that you have superstars out your ass and you don't know what to do with them, but they're all very good players and very young. And so you want to see them slot in, but you don't want to see too many of them. You need veteran presence, and you simply just have too many guys. And so even if you start sending dudes that are waiver exempt down simply because you must, you just have too many. That to me leads to players like we start looking at guys here that while you can make the argument they should potentially get a shot on the Habs, with so many guys under contracts, you don't want to lose people for absolutely nothing. If anything, this administration has proven is they don't do that. They don't lose things for nothing.
I hear you, but at the same time, sometimes you got to make that decision and make that choice where you don't want to lose them for nothing. Listen, I'll tell you right now, I'd be so fucking surprised if they were to waive Hoffman and a team claims him. Because remember, the team, if I'm not mistaken, if a team claims Hoffman, they're gonna get a discount on the salary for the first year, but they get the full amount on their cap next year. They're not gonna claim Hoffman. It's not happening. Drouin, on the other hand, which I don't think they're gonna put him on waivers, but if they do, it's half. But Montreal's free at the end of the year, regardless, one way or another, and that team gets a Drouin for their thing. They're not gonna waive Drouin either. So the best bet, if you're looking at a veteran player that could be waived that is unlikely to get claimed, is Mike Hoffman. The question
you think Mike Hoffman's going to report?
Well, that's what I was going to say. Do you think is Mike Hoffman going to actually report to Laval? That I don't think so.
He's got 2 years left, right? This and next?
Correct.
There's no way this dude's going to throw $9 million in the toilet. There's no way. He'll have to report.
Well, yeah. He's not going to fucking say no. It's money.
There's no way. Yeah, he'll have to do it. Mike Hoffman's going to go play in the AHL. I don't know, man.
I'm just throwing it out there. I know people who are going to listen to this are going to be like, there's no chance at all, even though they would do it. There's no chance at all it's going to happen. But look, we've got...
What does that say? Hey, what is the other argument? The people that talk from the optics perspective of things. That you come to play for the Montreal Canadiens and they don't care what you are. If you're a veteran of so many years, they'll waive you. Wouldn't that send a bad signal to people in terms of signing here in the future?
Not necessarily. It's showing that they're going the youth movement, they're going the route, they have their vision, they have their plan, and they're going to go based on performance. Mike, sorry, you're not part of the future plans. I didn't sign you, and at the same time, I know you're here and you're going to be a true pro and do what you got to do as a professional, but at the end of the day, you haven't really been performing.
Oh, I tell you one thing. It's going to be a very interesting 5 days because I think the season starts in 5 days.
October 7th.
I think October 7th is 5 days from the time of recording this podcast. We're the third.
It's
4 days. 4 days. 4 days from now. Even worse. It's going to be a very interesting 4 days because something's got to give. Something's going to happen. A trade has to happen, or a big name's going on waivers. If the
administration really doesn't want to lose anybody, then they're going to send whoever's eligible to go down to Laval just in the time being until they could sort shit out.
Well, and I think that's the more likely thing to happen. And I think, unfortunately, that's why guys like Slafkovsky is going to go down.
I can tell you this. Laval's going to be very entertaining to watch.
Oh, Laval's going to be good hockey this
year. For anybody who was skeptical about buying tickets to go watch the Laval Rocket because they're not the Montreal Canadiens, you're going to want to buy those tickets because they're going to be fun to watch this year. My real question when it comes to Laval is who's playing in nets because all they have is Caden Primo right now that's signed officially. And that's if they don't plan on keeping him up with the Montreal Canadiens.
I mean, while it's nice to see that the AHL team is going to be really fun to watch, I mean, bottom line, it's the AHL team, and you always look at the top guns to see what's going on. I just think that when we look at it, and unless if they do some crazy moving, some shrewd business actions that we just can't even fathom, and do something that we're like, how did he even think of this? I look at guys like Slafkovsky, who's taking the spot of a warm body veteran who should be on a team, and you have the ability to put him in Laval, and nobody gets hurt, and he can still develop and whatever. I feel like while I would prefer to see him on the Canadiens, that is likely the scenario to happen. Because now suddenly Drouin or Hoffman will be on the team. The other guy is your little extra dude, whatever you're going to do with him, or throw him on the side. And then maybe you have, I don't know, they interchange with Pitlick, and you don't have a fourth line anymore. You have like 3 third lines or something. I don't know.
Well, I could tell you, if they do send Slafkovsky, it really resolves the problem with Drouin. At that point, Drouin's going to be in the top 6, top 9, and it's just a question of whether he finds that chemistry with that line. That's it.
Drouin plays with Monahan and Kirby Dach in your example, or he plays with Dvorak and Gallagher, where Dandanov disappears. So I don't know about that.
It's a whole lot of
Well, you're not big on the player. I mean, with reason, he hasn't proven much lately, and he's been hurt quite a bit.
I was gonna.
It's just wild. I don't know. It's such a weird. It's a problem, but it's a stupid problem to have. But it's a problem. You just have too many guys, and I mean, they're not even. They're still playing. I think tonight they're still playing a whole bottom line on the team that are all going to be AHL guys. I don't think there's any doubt in the world that. I think they're icing not the full roster tonight.
No,
I think they're still trying guys out.
It's the most NHL ready.
It's the most that have been so far. It'll be 3 lines of NHL players, but season starts in 4 days. What are you doing? How are you not deciding yet? How do you still got kids up?
There's another game tomorrow.
Tonight and tomorrow. I know. It's. I think there's even another one. I think there's 3 left.
And then the cuts happen, the roster is official, and that's it. That's all, my friend.
And that's not even talking about the fact that a lot of people are still out there suggesting that if the right name comes up on the waivers, they're going to go get somebody.
Why? You're telling me if there's a right-handed defenseman or a goalie that's capable to play with the team, they're not going to do it? Anybody...
Goalie!
I've said this before.
Goalie?
Any player that they feel could... that they see could fit part of the future plans and will help the success of the team and is somebody that they actually like and fits the mold of the future Montreal Canadiens, they're going to claim it. Make sure they're going to claim it. They have the money to be able to do it.
Would you prefer Zach Fucale over Monty as your backup? He went on waivers. He had a big couple games in Washington. He's a guy from here.
How many times are we going to get rid of that guy?
I'm just saying.
You said goalie. Leave my paisans out of that.
You said goalie. I'm just throwing it out there. But... all right, listen, it's exciting to see what the lines are like and where the team is going to go. I'm definitely, and I'm sure you are as well, and I'm sure many people listening are going to be watching very eagerly the next 3 games to see who plays and who doesn't play well and where we're going. Why, did I say something messed up there?
Yeah, the word next didn't come out for you.
Oh, it didn't? Okay. Well, whatever.
It's okay. It's
okay. It's been a long podcast. We're a little bit of rust. I'm shaking it off. It's been 2 weeks. Anyways, thank you everybody for listening. We're gonna call it there. We're very eager to like I was trying to say to see what the team is going to be in the next 4 days. Who's still in the pros and who's being sent down and who's going on waivers maybe. We'd be curious to hear your take before the season starts. So if you can and if you like to, comment on Twitter, comment on our YouTube videos. Let us know who you think should go on waivers, should potentially try desperately hard to trade, who we should maybe claim as names come out. More and more names are coming out every day. We'd be super happy to read them and interact with you guys. So please do that. And if you haven't, as always, like, subscribe, you know the drill, just like everything else. We really appreciate it. Otherwise, always, again, keep an eye out on our social media for when our next podcast will be released. I know it's been a little wonky with the scheduling. We're looking to nail down something a little bit more specific. So again, please bear with us on that and keep an eye out. Otherwise, Vito, last word, anything?
Nope. I'm good. See you soon.
Good man. See you soon. Thank you. For Vito and Matt, this was Get Pucked.